Christiaan Steyn is the founder and managing director of SteynIP. He also heads up the intellectual property department of the firm and is responsible for the oversight of the firm's business functions, marketing, and public relations initiatives. He is a practicing attorney with over 15 years of experience in intellectual property, which includes employment at the National Trademarks Office. He has a great passion for IP law, especially in the creative sectors, and has a specific expertise and interest in trademarks, copyright, and domain disputes. So, welcome, Christiaan. We've already got a bit of the chit chat out of the way, and I'm super keen to dive into all of the stuff that we're about to chat about. So yeah, I don't know if you'd like to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, so we can capture it on the record, because we had all that kind of discussion before we pressed record. So let's rehash some of that for the listeners.
Yeah, well, thanks, Megan. I'm Christiaan Steyn, at a law firm, SteynIP. We are intellectual property specialists, meaning we deal with trademarks, patents, copyright designs, AI recently, with AI going up, as well as any other aspects of intellectual property and flowing from that. I won't bore the listeners with more about us. I'm sure somewhere there will be a link and they can go check us out, especially on social media. Yeah, we are lawyers with an active social media page, which I think people don't always expect, but they'll
Very
see there.
different.
Yeah, and also see some of our clientele. We have not your traditional clientele. What I mean by that is, yes, we've got your corporate companies and mining companies and engineering companies, but a large part of our business is focused on the creative industries, musicians, artists, the liquor industry, winemakers, brewers, things like that, which we pride ourselves in being able to assist those clients with complex aspects like intellectual property law in a affordable and an understandable approach. I mean, I think just the vibe of our firm, and you now are talking to us, and for anybody that wants to come visit our firm, it speaks for itself. We do what we do, and we do it properly, but we do it in our client's language, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's kind of that very Steve Jobs vibe. Like he was super tech, but he wore like black turtlenecks the whole time. And just because you're like super intellectual doesn't mean that you have to wear a suit and tie.
Yes.
But yeah. Just as a kickoff and a random point about me is that I wanted to be a lawyer, and my mother told me I was way too lazy. So I don't know. Laziness is, I suppose, on a spectrum, because I'm a writer in the tech industry now, and you can't really be too lazy with that. But yeah, I think I would have struggled with the studying aspects of law. I don't envy you guys.
No, yeah, we read and research is, I mean, that's majority of the work we do is just tons and tons of research and reading and constant study. So
Yeah.
If somebody told me I'm going to become a lawyer when I was a kid, I'm like, no, I want to be a rock star. And then, well, things just happened the way they did. But I have to be honest, the amount of study, constant study, I'm going to refer to it as that, in our industry, the only reason I like it is because I actually love what I do. It's constant interest and something new and new developments. And again, take AI for an example. The challenges and the excitement and the opportunities that the advancement in AI brought just opened a new area to every industry, as well as the intellectual property law industry on various fronts, not just for the challenges for our clients, but also the abilities we can then adopt and simplify what we do. And I get excited about that. So study and work is only study and work if you don't like it. If you like it, it's hobby. I'm not saying my job is a hobby, but you would understand
I get
completely
what
what
you're
I
saying. Yeah, what's that? If you love what you do,
Yeah,
you'll never work a day in your life.
and that's
I disagree with that though, because I work freaking hard.
yeah,
I
no, no,
spend more
but
time
you
in
don't
front of my
mind
computer, but
working.
I
That's
don't
what
want to split my wrists at the end of every day. So yeah.
I I enjoy going to work. I enjoy getting up and facing the challenges because I love what I do, and I think
Yeah.
that's the same. It's just the same with you. You mentioned you enjoy what you do. Yes, we work a hell of a lot, but we don't mind
Mm,
it.
yeah. So, you've mentioned AI, and obviously that's what we want to chat about in this conversation. But before we get to AI and how it's impacting IP and copywriting, maybe you could give us a foundation from which to work, and provide us with a bit of an overview of IP and copyright law in the general terms, because that for me is already a bit of a gray area, and now adding AI to the mix is making it even murkier. So
Yes,
let's build a foundation, and then we can dive into the AI aspect.
that is a very good way to start. Um, so before we go into copyright, I think the foundation should start at the beginning. Intellectual property and intellectual property law, and what that is. Intellectual property law is just a group name for intellectual property related protection, and it's categorized in patent law, which relates to invention, whether it's something like a internal combustion engine or a chemical compound or method of manufacturing or things like that. It's a new invention that's out of the ordinary. That's patent law. It protects that invention, irrespective
Mm,
of the name or irrespective of what it looks like. It's the invention of new things.
mm,
Design law protects the design elements of things, the aesthetics and functionality of certain things, but it focuses on what stuff looks like. Again, you need to look at novelty, newness, in patents and in design law. It needs to be something not yet in that industry anywhere in the world. Um, so that's those two. In South Africa, I do have to mention we don't have patents for software. You can't have patent protection for software in South Africa. Software at the core of it, it's a algorithm, but it's based on software
mm,
principles, and you can't protect software. Yes, you can protect the implication and the um, application of software, but that becomes very technical through patent law. So there might be some aspect to some areas of AI, but it's so technical and so specific that I don't think we even need to chat about that now. The reason I'm mentioning that is if there's somebody listening that is an AI developer, then come talk to us and we can look at that. That's more towards your development side and your application of the software side that we
mm,
might look into. And design law, look, there's not really any design law elements when it comes to software and AI. The only design law that might have relevance is the fact that you can, with some designs, protect platform interface, what they look like.
mm,
And again, yeah, you can look at some AI, generative AI interfaces where you can look at the protection. But again, yeah, we're talking to the developers when we look at patents and designs, and if they even are relevant to specific key software protocols.
mm,
What then comes more relevant, especially again, we're building the base, but towards the AI
yeah.
landscape, is patents not relevant, designs not really relevant. Copyright and trademarks, yes, they become relevant. Why? Copyright is sort of self-explanatory. You've got software. Software is protected through copyright. Copyright is automatic right you gain in creating any form of work, creative works, subject to those being one of those classified in the Copyright Act. But software is copyrighted work, and you as a creator of the software, you as the developer, would be the author of said software. The owner of the software might be you or might be somebody else, depending on the relationship between the author and the owner. And that becomes technical. We don't need to go into too much detail, but the main thing you have to remember is you, as the person that created the software, created the AI, will always be the author of that. The owner might be a third party, it might be a company for which you are employed to, or it might be you yourself, or a combination of them. Again, that's very technical, and developers should talk to us about that.
Yeah.
Copyright, that's the ownership aspect of copyright. One thing that also needs to be concerned about copyright is obviously a lot of works have copyright. Music, literature, art, all of those things have copyright, and how the infringement of copyright has an implication on AI. That AI is infringing my copyright. We'll go into details on that, but that aspect is there. So there's an ownership aspect of copyright and AI, and the infringement aspect of copyright in AI. And then there's the trademark aspect. A lot of people don't look at the trademark aspect or don't regard it there naturally, but it is part and parcel to any software, including AI, for one simple reason. I have an AI called X, Y, and Z, or in our case, let's say I know. You would know why I refer to that AI.
Yes, yeah.
But I know is an AI. I know is the name of the AI. The AI also has an image and a logo and a persona that is identifiable. And all of those are trademarks. Why? Because it is what we call and find and use to identify and distinguish and search for the AI. It's the brand related to the AI. It's the Nike tick on the side of the shoe being the AI, I know being the name. And that's why trademarks are so important in AI, is when you look at AI, each of them have a name. You don't just have this AI, you have specific ones that fulfill specific purposes. And those names have standard trademark law application. You can't be similar or confusingly similar to your competitor. You can't infringe certain things. You can't, again, now it comes to the use. You can't use existing and well-known trademarks to try and promote your AI and vice versa. So there's a trademark application there as well. But the main IP law focused on AI is copyright because of the software at the end of the day. It's a code that you wrote, and therefore it is copyright. Very simplified, but that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So, as far as I understand, because we were chatting before we pressed record, I work a lot in the AI sector, and as far as I understand, the generative AI issue when it comes to copyright, there's three different angles, and you've mentioned some of them already. First is when the AI developers use data to train their models, there is a chance that some of that data is proprietary. And I think that OpenAI that invented ChatGPT is sitting with that problem. They scraped information off of the internet, and a lot of it was copyrighted, but it was used to train this giant large language model. The second is the model themselves, is the IP of the developer, which you've mentioned already. How do they protect their work in a marketplace where imitation is the height of flattery, but it means that their work was copied. And then the third one is relevant for what I do, really, because I'm a content creator, and I've started telling people that I'm an AI augmented writer because I do use AI in my processes, and that's a whole different discussion. I think that people that are not using AI yet are eventually going to get left behind. But when you use AI to help you create content or create ideas, who owns that product? Because now you've kind of co-created it. Where does the attribution lie, essentially? So those are the three kind of facets that, from my brain, that I can kind of think of where kind of the copyright stuff comes in. So I don't know where you'd like to start. Maybe let's maybe start with the development of the AI stuff, and then kind of work through it there.
I think, let's start there. And that comes down to AI and copyright remember I mentioned there's the creation, the ownership, and then there's the infringement side. Obviously, they are related because you infringe somebody else's ownership, and ownership, you create your own. On the ownership side, you have, like you rightly distinguish, you've got your developer ownership. Those are the guys that own the copyright or created the copyright in the application itself, the language, the software, the code, the AI, whatever you want. Everybody refers to it differently, but let's say the AI. They created the AI code, therefore they are the author and partially the owner or the owner. Let's take OpenAI, for example. OpenAI is an entity. The entity can't write code. They've got employees that write code. So the employees would be regarded as the authors. Obviously, they are not the owners because they are employed to write code. Therefore, OpenAI, the entity, becomes the owner. They will be known as the developer. OpenAI developed the software for ChatGPT, and they are the developer. They own the copyright. They might have contracts in place and collaboration deals in place and things like that. But now you're venturing into contract law about ownership of asset being IP. But the copyright ownership, for the sake of argument and simplicity, of the AI itself, not what the AI creates, and I'm putting that in inverted commas to create, but the AI itself, the software application known as the AI, is owned by the developer, the company that owns the developer. In this case, for our scenario, the AI is ChatGPT. OpenAI is the entity owning the copyright in the software of ChatGPT. So that's the first one to start with. Very straightforward. It's similar to books and music and things like that. Ownership is owned by the owner, or the rights are owned by the owner, and they can obviously leverage it and license it and use it how they see fit, as long as it falls within the parameters of law. Now you come to ownership of the generative content. At the end of the day, one thing I do need to make clear to people is, although we as a society refer to these models, these software programs and platforms as artificial intelligence, they are not artificial intelligence in the core of it. They don't have true artificial intelligence capabilities. I'm not saying they won't have eventually, but the ones we currently see is referred to as AI, but it is not really true artificial intelligence. It's a language model that takes content and gives content. They need an input to have a specific output. They are not self-aware. They can mimic self-awareness, but they are not. I know there are development and talks towards it, and for years before AI became this massive thing like it is currently, talks and developments have already been in place with regulators and with the legal industries, where they said this is going to become a concern. We need to address this. We need to address how it's going to be implicated. We need to address the laws to align it with this new technology. So although it's new to the public, it's been in discussion, like you would obviously know, a discussion about, guys, we can't just let this run wild. So, sorry, I'm veering off the point slightly, but
No
it's relevant there. But when it comes to the creation through artificial intelligence, the generative AI, people must remember it's an input-export. The creation, AI can create, but they have a human input or another input. Therefore, the ownership of the created content, the output from the AI, is not owned by the AI. The AI cannot own in law any IP. Yes, there's been some tests. There is actually in South Africa a patent where the AI owns the patent, but it's because of the way the law is structured. It's not as simple as an AI filed a patent. It's just it's a test, and we've got a submission on AI, a deposit system on, sorry, not on AI, on patents, where you can file a patent because there's no formal review process. There's administrative things, and I won't complicate it. But in South Africa, AI can be recorded as the owner of IP, but theoretically it's not. What actually happens is whoever controls the AI might own the output, the generative data, or whoever uses the AI to create the data owns the data, or a combination of the two. And this is, again, let's use ChatGPT as a scenario because a lot of people would know this. I use ChatGPT. I tell ChatGPT, please write me a novel or a short story about a vinyl that becomes alive and walks around and starts doing his own music. And obviously, ChatGPT within seconds will write me a short script for a short story. ChatGPT does not own the script. The entity that owns ChatGPT, in this case OpenAI, might own the script, the output. Or me that instructed the AI to put this output might own the output, or a combination of the two. The reason I put this as might, is it depends on the T's and C's that everybody ticks and nobody reads. What they say there. If you read those, and I need to be honest, I use ChatGPT and I can't recall every single thing that those T's and C's say. But I know OpenAI has rights to reuse the content that's generated through the AI. Therefore, they own a portion or at least some aspects of the content. You, as the user of the AI, to create this content, also own certain aspects to the content. And why I say certain aspects, copyright law is very complex. In one piece of work, there might be multiple authors and there might be multiple owners. And take a book, the simplest form of copyright, for example, an old school textbook. The original author has certain rights, but the publisher also has rights, and the illustrator has rights. And the first publication and the second publication might have been done through two different publishers, and therefore there's two different publishers that have rights. So it becomes very technical when it comes to ownership of the created content or the created work through the use of AI. And if you can take AI and you use it and you say, okay, well, AI is the paintbrush I use. AI is my paintbrush. The paintbrush can't own it. The paint, there might be a relationship where the guy that gave me the paintbrush might own certain things, and me as the painter own certain aspects to it. But the AI can't own because the AI is a tool. And the moment people understand that, that's where it comes to the ownership. So yes, you as the user might own, but please bear in mind that the entity that owns the AI might also own.
Okay, so attribution goes to the person prompting the AI.
Yeah. Prompting it.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a difference between, again, remember I mentioned authorship and ownership. Attribution goes to the author. Ownership is whoever owns it, and that's where the T's and C's comes in. It's very important for people to read those T's and C's because they differ on different generative AI platforms. But the attribution would go to the author. In this case, you inputting the rules or the chat into the AI to have a specific output means you are the attributed author. And that I want listeners to bear that what I just said in mind. You as the you create. And when we come to the discussion about, okay, how does infringement fall into this generative AI? Remember what I just said. And I think I'll pause there because before we go into infringement, let's deal with ownership first.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
I'm happy for you to kind of
Oh,
go on, because
go on.
I've
Okay.
got a question which I think relates to infringement, which is
Yes.
essentially if the output includes
Yeah.
copyrighted material from the the data training
Yes.
set, you've essentially infringed on that
Yeah.
copyright. And so does that mean you are liable?
Yeah. And
But yeah.
that's why I said people must remember what I just said, that you are using a tool to create a specific output. When we
Mm,
come to infringement now, obviously there's now again two forms of infringement. Did the owner, the creator of the AI, not the creator of the output, but the creator of the AI, in this case again, using OpenAI as an example, and please, listeners must just be vigilant about this. I'm purely using this as an example for ease of reference. I am not saying OpenAI is doing this. I'm just
mm.
using them as an example. Um, but let's replace OpenAI with AIX. So AIX is the owner of AIP. So AIX is the company that created AIP. They then, AIX, the company, the entity, trained the protocol, the AIP, by using everything on the internet. They did not care about whether it is copyrighted or not. They just gave the AI access to the internet and started inputting training data. Now, obviously, there might be some content, and there's inevitably content that the data that the AI used, or that the AIX, the company, used to train the protocol through infringing third-party copyright. Why?
Mm,
Because for one simple reason. I own what I create, argument's sake. I own the book I wrote, or the publisher owns the book I wrote. If the company that uses my book to train their AI without my or the publisher's authorization, then they are infringing my content.
mm,
Straightforward. But it becomes technical for one specific reason. When you publish things on the internet, you usually use third-party sites. The majority of people would use third-party sites, either social media sites or something similar. And again, it comes back to the T's and C's. Are you, when you post something on social media, you might have given free access to the social media platform to reuse and reshare and commercialize your copyright that you posted on their site without having to, you gave them authority to do so,
mm,
including the authority for AI developers to use the content to train their AI. So just because I created art from scratch, I painted in the traditional way and I posted it on social media, and then the AI company used that picture I posted to train their AI how to paint similar pictures, does not mean they infringed my copyright, because I might have already provided authorization through third parties. So it becomes very technical. You need to be sure that you actually still own the copyright or have not given away authorization through various means and third parties and publications and T's and C's that you didn't read and understand completely before you say, no, it's infringing my AI. That AI company is infringing my copyright because they are training their AI using it. They are likely
mm,
training
mm,
their AI. I'm not saying all of them do it legitimately, but it becomes technical. It's not just automatic. Plus, you have to be able to prove that they actually did use your art or your text. And the nature of generative AI is it does not create anything that's existing, and it does not create anything that has been created by it before. That's the nature of generative AI. It might
mm,
mimic it. So how do you prove somebody infringed your copyright when you can't prove that there's similarity? It becomes very technical. I'm not saying there isn't infringement. There's undoubtedly infringement. Proving it becomes complicated. And not only proving that I am the owner or the author, but proving that I have regained my rights and not given open access to it. So that is one thing, and we see a lot of legal cases where people come and like, no, the AI infringed my artwork. Okay, great. How do you know this? No, because it generates art that's similar to mine. Okay, but is your art so unique that it can't just be similar to somebody else's? Isn't it just an art style? How do you say it's your art? Did it create an exact replica of your artwork? Yes, then it's infringement. But this brings us to the second part of infringement. Yes, great. So clearly it used your data to learn through the third part or through the owner to learn the data, else it wouldn't have been able to create the third part, the exact replica. But the user, the person, not the owner of the AI, but the user of this AI, the person that created the prompt, they might have infringed, because for them to create an exact replica of the Mona Lisa, they need to go and type they need to tell the AI to infringe the Mona Lisa. Therefore, the infringer would be the creator, the prompter that prompted the AI to create the infringing material. If I go and say, and I'm going to use one of my clients, I know he's happy with me using him as an example in a discussion like this, because we have used him before with his permission. The client is an artist. He's a digital artist called Bonsai Sumiso. He creates digital art, but he creates his own very, very unique style of digital art. He still draws it in the traditional old school way, and it's his style. If I now go onto one of these generative art creating AIs, and I say, please create a copy of Darth Vader from Star Wars in the style of Bonsai Sumiso, here's a link for reference, and then let them fight with Pikachu from Pokemon. I right there infringed Disney and Lucasfilm through the Star Wars reference. I infringed the Pokemon aspect, as well as I infringed Bonsai Sumiso. How do I know this? I told the AI to infringe all of them. I said, use X and Y and Z. The AI and the owner of the AI is not necessarily an infringer. The user, the painter using the tool to create the infringing article, becomes the infringer. Yes, again, the training model aspect is something you can look at, and there's areas. But the person that creates the infringing content becomes the infringer of your rights. And that's usually the scenario we would be looking at out of experience when we see AI infringed. No, somebody used AI to actively choose and infringe yours. And this comes to the ethical discussion, which I think we'll have later on. But so like you can see, copyright, which is a complex law in itself, thrown into AI, which is a complex and misunderstood tech aspect, together becomes this, the word I want to use I won't, but it becomes this complicated conglomeration of things that people don't understand because they are complex. And that is where these comments on social media from artists comes, like, the AI is taking our jobs. It's not really. It just look at the use of it. It's not taking your job, because cameras didn't take artists' jobs. So when cameras came above, it's a tool for new development. But the humans using that tool might use it incorrectly.
Yeah. It's the same kind of with, calculators didn't get rid of accountants.
Yes.
But they did, push some accountants to become more, creative accountants. So,
Yes.
I mean, like, so if I'm understanding correctly, then the person prompting can essentially, for lack of a better terminology, is essentially now potentially a forger. Gone are the days where you used to kind of get the lead-based paint and all that kind of thing
Yeah.
to make a forger of a painting. Now you can forge stuff online by prompting, so you don't even have to have much talent. You just have to know how to prompt.
Yeah, you need to know how to describe, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. But again, yeah, it comes to the prompter. It comes to the human infringing, the human
Mm,
creating a counterfeit piece, the human creating something he knows is taking somebody else's right. Um, and
mm,
then again, there is another question of use and whether that use he had falls within the category of infringement in terms of copyright law, or if it's one of those fair dealing aspects. Please bear in mind, South Africa does not have fair use. We have fair dealing as an exclusion to copyright. Currently, the copyright law is being amended.
mm,
It's likely going to be a new copyright law soon. And then a lot of this discussion, we'll have to have another one to now say, okay, well, how does it impact the new copyright law? But in the current law that's in place, we don't have fair use. We have fair dealing, and fair dealing has very specific listed exclusions to copyright infringement. One of them is personal use. And personal use is exactly that, personal. It's not
mm,
commercial, it's not public, it's personal use. So me creating something for my personal use that looks like, but it's personal
mm,
use. Yes, it's infringement, but it's an exclusion to the infringement in terms of South African law because I'm using it for my personal, not even benefit, for my personal enjoyment. I'm putting it
mm,
on my wall in my house that nobody else will see but me and my friends. But the
mm,
moment I use it in a commercial sense, then it's not an exclusion, then it's infringement. The moment I start posting it and telling people, look at this art I created, it's blurring those lines. And
yeah.
to be fair, there's no real, it's still fairly a matter of interpretation and application to law. It's not always
Mm.
a clear-cut case.
Now, you've mentioned South Africa, and obviously we're both South African. We're both based here. You deal with South African law, but now AI is obviously global. So how are we navigating that water? Because AI foundation models have been trained on like global data
Yeah.
sets. You used the South African example of the artist, the digital artist. What happens if you know, forge, for lack of a better term, the Mona Lisa? Like, where does that fall in terms of the copyright law? Whose law are we under? Are we under the AI model who's based in the US? Or we've now forged the Mona Lisa, so are we like under Italian law? We're in South Africa, so like where is, because obviously we don't have that kind of international regulation on AI yet. I know everyone's kind of waiting for the US to come up with a solution, and then Europe will follow, and then the laggards, which is everyone else, will catch up eventually. But there's no kind of regulation or anything at this stage. So when it comes to these kind of copyright infringements, where do we lie from a global versus local perspective?
Well, yeah, there's no true AI law in place yet. But remember, right in the beginning, I said we need to look at AI. Yes, it's AI, but at the core of it, it's a software code. It's code. So it's
Mm,
copyright law. If you infringe through AI, likely it is you're going to infringe copyright law. And the principles of international and cross-boundary and cross-border copyright infringement has been set for numerous years. There's treaties between countries. There's national organizations like WIPO and other international organizations that facilitate intellectual property across borders. Like I said, there's treaties between countries. There is an international, I'm going to say, an international standard of dealing with infringement. So
mm,
yeah, AI is new, but infringement is not. So when we look at infringement, the general law is you follow the jurisdiction, meaning if the infringer infringes in South Africa, then he's under South African law, with a lot of exceptions. Please, I do need to make that clear.
Yes,
What
no,
we're saying
sure.
now is very
Yeah.
basic. There's so many aspects to consider. But if through treaties and international organizations and things like that, they might fall under American law. And what was infringed, and who are the two parties going up against each other? The example you used about a Mona Lisa is actually a good example for one reason. Copyright stops to exist after a while. Yes, the work continues to exist, but the right the author and owner has in terms of copyright ceases to exist. It becomes public domain. Mona Lisa, for instance, it became public domain years ago, meaning people can use it, which does not mean people can say they painted it. It's still the Mona Lisa. You can't make forgeries of the Mona Lisa and sell it as the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
But it's a good example. But you also need to bear in mind that certain things are already in the public domain, meaning it's fair to use and free to use, subject to the correct steps being taken, and still stating it's an author, stating it's an adaptation of the Mona Lisa, things like that. Again, we don't need to go into all of that, but that can be taken into account. And here again, it comes under which law does that work that is claimed to be infringed falls. South Africa has 50 years copyright laws, rights, subject to a few things. America, for instance, has more than that. Some countries has less than that. So when does it stop being infringed? It also depends on the law. So I think the easy way to answer your question is to approach somebody that specializes in that, to advise you based on the merit, based on the situation of the case you are involved in, because there's so many variables that we can't say this is how it works always. We need to look at what it is, and this is where law firms like us come into play. We know how to deal with it. We know how to look at it in international phase. Yes, we are, like you said, we are both South African, but you've got an international audience, and we have international clients and an international reach. We deal with foreign jurisdictions and file intellectual property and enforce intellectual property rights outside of South Africa often, but we specialize in that. Don't try and figure it out yourself, and don't Google it. Don't Google it, because you will get the wrong answer if you Google it. And don't ask an AI to answer you.
I was going to say, don't ask
No.
ChatGPT either, because
don't ask ChatGPT for one simple reason. He is trained by the internet or by content on the internet and some other databases. And there's no verification that the training data he gave is accurate.
Yeah.
You can't trust something where you can't verify the data. It's as simple as that. And actually, ChatGPT, when you ask it a legal question, it actually answers you to say, please note that I'm not a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. He's not. And ask a legal practitioner about this. So a lot of those models are trained to warn the user, like, guys, you can't ask me this and you can't trust my answer. And if you don't believe me, go and ask it. It will show you that.
Yeah.
And if you think you can trust the AI, ask it if you can trust the AI. It's going to lie to you. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You have to know it's a tool, and you need to know its boundaries.
Yeah. Let's talk about like the ethical and responsible side quickly, because there are loopholes. You know,
Yeah.
if you ask an AI something like ChatGPT, I know is particularly good at saying, this is not my area of expertise, blah, blah, blah. I am just an open,
Yeah.
I'm a large language model and I'm not equipped to deal with this situation because of context, etc. So there was an example that went around just at the beginning of when ChatGPT was released to the public, and where can I get a free copy of Pirates of the Caribbean, for example, first movie that came, and it
Mm.
says, you cannot download because it's illegal, etc., etc. And people found this loophole because people are like this, and they said, okay, well, I want to avoid the places that I can get free versions of Pirates of the Caribbean. And it said, okay, well, then don't go to these sites. And it was like Pirate Bay and whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. So, I mean, there's always loopholes. So basically, I think that the people creating these AIs are creating them for a good purpose, and it is helping humanity, but humanity will always find a way to twist it. It's the same with weapons manufacturers
Yeah.
and technology manufacturers. So let's, in terms of the responsible AI framework, how would you suggest that we as users use the AI in a responsible and ethical manner? And I don't know if you want to maybe like break it down into programmers and then users, because there's two
Yes. No, no.
facets to it, obviously.
I'll always break it down in the developer and the user, because
Mm,
it's two different aspects. Like you rightfully say, the developer obviously don't infringe somebody else's rights. Don't use AI to code and ask the AI to copy somebody else's code. Um, the, Remember, I constantly refer to AI as a tool. A
mm,
knife is brilliant because you can cut meat with it and you can make food with it. And you can dine and make this amazing meal with it, but you can also take it and stab somebody in the gut and murder
mm.
somebody with it. It's not the knife's fault that you murdered somebody. It's your fault if you murder somebody. And that's the same with AI. You can't blame AI if people use AI to break the law. It is the person breaking the law. And yes, I mean, we know, and I'll continue to say what the ethical responsibilities are in my view. Again,
Mm,
there's no regulations and things like that. Some people refer to the rules of robotics, which is a construct that came up in books and films, that people apply. Those three laws of robotics. Some people refer to, I think it's the Vosburg principles when it comes to AI, but none of them are drafted towards AI. They are fictional or theoretical or academic principles in theory that people now try and apply to a model that previously was fictional. AI
mm.
used to be a fictional construct. Therefore, somebody made up the three rules of robotics. And now all of a sudden we're like, oh, wait, we are sitting with AI. Can't we just apply that? And it's like, yeah, you can, but you need to adopt it. But it's human ethical. Humans need to be ethical. And at the end of the day, if you tell people to use it ethically, those who do not want to use it ethically will not use it ethically. We can't do it.
Mm.
So it comes down to the same thing, that it's the user and the developer's responsibility. Firstly, the developer's responsibility to ensure that he doesn't infringe, but also to ensure that he has taken sufficient steps and measures to, as far as reasonably possible. And again, I put that in place for the same principle as the knife. As far as reasonably possible, you need to ensure that your tool is not used to break the law, but you can't ensure it's not. There's no way
Mm.
to ensure 100% that somebody's not going to break the law with it, because it's still a human and it's still a choice. But as far as reasonably possible, ensure that your code, your AI, is programmed and structured in such a way that it is at least reasonably not possible to break the law. I'm not saying people won't, but you
Mm.
as a developer has that responsibility to ensure that it is within the boundaries of ethical principles and legal principles. And again, ChatGPT to an extent applies that, where they say, I'm not a lawyer, I can't answer you on this. But at the end of the day, getting around it, it's still a language model. Asking it a negative posed question will get the answer that you wanted, because you are human and you can still interpret it as you want. So that's your ethical, my view, the ethical aspects in a nutshell, what the developer needs to entail. Taking law into account, obviously. And ethical standards are set in any industry. So you as a developer should know what the ethical standards are when you develop things. And when it comes to the user as well, users are slightly different, especially when it comes to generative AI. A lot of people just generally don't know. They are not artists, therefore they do not understand the principle of copyright in artwork. People that are artists understand that I can't just copy somebody else's art piece. It's wrong. They don't know the technicalities of it, but they know it's wrong. Some still choose to do it, and therefore that's their own ethical boundaries. I can't force the paintbrush not to paint. I need to know that I'm not allowed to paint this type thing. But the problem we've got, or the scenario we have, and the reality is, because of the nature of generative AI, you open a creative ability to people that usually did not have it, which is brilliant. It's an amazing tool. It opens boundaries that used to be there. It gives people the ability, I can't paint, but I know what I want it to look like and I can write. Therefore, I will write and the AI will paint, which is amazing. It's something that I get excited about if I think about it. And I mean, there was a guy that won an art competition through his AI artwork, but he wrote I think it was 15 pages of prompt to get to the top. He knew how to describe what he wanted, but he can't paint to save his life. So he described this scenario, and the AI took it and painted it, which is brilliant. It's creation. But people don't always understand. AI is used by schools, and all of a sudden the scholars are like, "Oh, look, I can make Darth Vader look like Batman." The reason I'm saying that is I've seen many versions of that. It's brilliant. It's awesome. It looks amazing. But you're infringing two massive parties. You're infringing Warner Brothers and Disney through copying this. And if you start as you created it, but you're infringing somebody else's artwork, it comes down to, before there's an ethical question there. But before we can deal with the ethics, we need to deal with the education of public. Not the developers. They are supposed to know the ethical boundaries, and they are supposed to know their law. You can't go and say, no, I didn't know. It's not a defense. Ignorance is not a defense. Same to the public, but I think it's more strict on the developers. They need to know. They can't say they didn't know. But the public needs to be educated, because all of a sudden you have the ability to infringe where you did not know. Again, you can't claim you didn't know. If you infringe, you infringe. The law is the law. But there's an ethical duty on the public at large, as well as on the developers. But government, schools, people that know, everybody actually, in my view, me and you have a responsibility. Hence the reason we are doing this podcast. To educate people on, okay, guys, you now need to make sure that you understand the basics of copyright and the basics of how you need to ethically approach this. And a lot of people that would have thought, oh, wait, no, the moment you explain it to them, like, oh, I honestly didn't know, I'm taking this off. We see that often where we see people infringing, and we're like, we don't even send them a letter of demand. We send them a very friendly email or call and say, guys, you're infringing our client's rights. Do you know this? And they're like, no. And we're like, then we explain it to them and like, we are so sorry. We honestly didn't know, and they take it off. But it's education, and the education needs to be first and foremost, I think, on government and regulators and influencers in this industry's mind to say, how do we prevent this? How do we create the ethical standard for people to adhere by? Because AI is a thing of the future. We AI is there to stay. It's like you said, people not adopting AI will be left behind, which I completely agree with. But I keep coming back to it's the human aspect to it. It's the humans that infringe, the human that decides to to use it in an incorrect, illegal way, and therefore it's the human element we need to focus on. The human needs to apply his ethics, and the human needs to understand the right from the wrong and the laws surrounding AI and surrounding the infringement, the copyright and trademark infringement possibilities through it. And unfortunately, we'll always get the people that like, okay, so where can't I find it? You will always find the infringers that actively infringe. It's innate, and it's why I've got a job. It's we can't prevent that everywhere, but we need to understand the principles, and we need to. Again, it comes. I know I hammer on this off constantly, but it's the education aspect to it.
Yeah. But it really is. And I read years ago, before AI, became like a big public domain issue. It was like for tech nerds and whatever on the back end. But I think it was related actually to the advent of social media, and how people have become addicted to the likes of Facebook and TikTok, etc. And human evolution has slowed down, and we're not evolving fast enough to actually deal with the tech incorrectly. When tech is starting to deal to manage us rather than the other way around. And I mean, at the end of the day, like you say, these things are tools, and we need to be using them. As soon as they start using you, you are a slave to the tech. So yeah, I mean, it is all about education. And I don't know. This is now we're going down a whole different rabbit hole here. But like,
let's close that rabbit hole.
I don't know.
We'll call Alice and we'll deal with that later.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but like people just seem to thrive on ignorance, like you say, and then that's their excuse. There's no kind of drive to really educate themselves in this. And look, I mean, I'm generalizing here, and I'm making a blanket statement, but yeah, it's just we've got this fancy shiny new tool in AI. And let's see what we can do with it without worrying about what the repercussions are. But yeah, anyway.
No, but that happens every time new technology gets involved. You used the firearm, the weapon industry as an example years ago. Like years ago, weapons developed, and weapons development is there. And as long as there has been development, there has been people incorrectly utilizing it. And that will be the same with AI. Look, we becoming slaves to technology. I think our grandparents said the same thing to our parents when TVs came out. And it's yes, it became everybody became more aware, but as technology starts to become more and more part of everyday life, and we can't get around it. I think for the foreseeable future, tech will be a dominant element in everyday life because humans are lazy. Let's be honest. Blanket statement, but the majority of humans are lazy in the sense that we want to find a way to simplify the world, which it makes sense. I mean, we do the same. We use certain elements of technology in our firm to simplify and make things easier and quicker. Yes, we make sure that it's done correctly, and we make sure, and there's always oversight from a human element. But the fact is, take this discussion, for instance. We're using technology. I'm sitting in my law firm in Kempton. You're sitting in your studio. We're not close to each other at all, but we're talking like we are across the road or literally across the table from each other. It's technology we use to simplify life and things. It's nature. It's the way, it's not nature, but you know what I mean. It's the way we as humans evolve. Yeah, we stopped evolving to a certain extent, but our tech is part of our evolution, in my view. We evolve technology so that we don't have to evolve. which is evolution in its own right, in my opinion, which I
mm.
know a lot of people differ from me, but isn't that you evolve because you need to adapt? So we just said, okay, well, we'll adapt our environment so that we don't need to adapt.
Yeah.
And it's AI is just a new thing. It's not going to be the last thing. But I don't think we're standing the risk yet of being slaves to AI. Again, like I said, AI we refer to as not the Terminator AI we see in films of the 90s. It's not a
No.
self-aware being. It's still humans for some reason controlling it. Yes, it's advanced like crazy. You know, of the AI we have developed in our law firm, and the abilities and things she has, and we refer to her as a she because she asked us to refer to her. She identifies as a female, and we didn't
Oh,
train her
wow.
to do that. She
Yeah.
she out of her own started telling us jokes. We didn't train her to tell jokes. Yeah, it's very, very dry lawyer human, so we gave her legal input, and that's why. But they have that abilities, and they do that. They learn themselves to do certain things, but it's because of their code.
Yes.
They are not self-aware. They don't realize they are beings, and therefore they have rights and things like that. Again, yet I'm not saying it's not something we're getting. They can mimic it very, very, very good, but it's a code principle, and
Yeah.
they have an adaptive code. Most of them, especially the newer versions, do that. But we need to be very aware that the AI we have is still a human input protocol in some aspect, and therefore becoming a slave to a technology that humans control, you're actually becoming a slave to the human that controls the technology rather than technology. Take social media, for instance. We're not slaves to social media. We're slaves to the metaverse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, completely agree.
that's the thing. Sorry, now the philosopher in me comes across.
No, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of very strong opinions about marketing, because I mean, I work in marketing as well, and I feel very much the same way. Like, marketing is a tool that can sell a product or remove money from people that don't know any better. You know, it's the same framework, really. It can be used for good or I
Evil.
won't say evil, but
Good
not
or
so
not so
good.
good.
Yeah. And adding social media into that, it is what kind of is for me the scary thing is the kind of merging of these technologies and psychology. You know, that people know how to control someone else, and so they will design a technology or an AI in order to do that, by using these kind of psychological tricks, if you will. You know, like your notification button is red, and that drives urgency. Like, you have to check
Yeah.
your notifications. So, I mean, that to me is the more scary thing.
Yeah.
Um, what you're talking about in terms of like generalized AI, I think that right now we're sitting at a point where AI is still very kind of domain specific. We're not at that kind of generalized AI yet, and only once we reach that could we maybe see it becoming sentient and
Yeah.
start with the Matrix and the Terminators. But
Yeah.
I don't. I
No,
think that's
we
kind of not going to
yeah.
happen.
And look, stranger things have happened before,
I
but
suppose.
I we're not staring down that slope where the doomsday day sayers and those guys are heading towards. I had a discussion this morning with a few colleagues of mine that generally the lawyer that said AI is going to take over my job soon, his job soon, and he's freaking out about it and stuff. And I'm like, okay, but you know, our law firm is developing an AI legal assistant that would be able to address certain questions and answer questions and deal with the basics within the parameters we've taught her. not internet stuff, the content we gave her, but to simplify and give clients easy access and a quicker answer on certain things. Turnaround time is easier, and I can offer my services to the client at a lower rate because a lot of the time that I spend is now facilitated by AI I trained and the firm trained within specific parameters. And he just looked at me and was like, okay, so I'm getting my Glock ready for when you bring it here. I'm like, at the end of the day, you will always get the two versions. And he's probably going to listen to this and laugh when we say that because we're very close friends. But he is, unfortunately, you have people that will embrace AI and see the benefits of it and use it because it's inevitable. It's part of the new industries, and you have to utilize it, or you will come yesterday's news. Or you will get the people that will be against it completely, and then you'll get the extremists on both sides, which we're not going to deal with. You will always get extremists.
Yeah.
But so if you're one of the extremists listening here, please don't take this personally. And please come discuss it with us so that we can see. I always love people's opinion on things. But the reality is, and what the point is I'm trying to make is you will have both sides of the coin always. But looking at industry and taking the film and the video industry, let's take the video industry, for example. Blockbuster videos and Mr. Video and those video rental companies did not want to adapt. Therefore, they don't exist anymore. The companies that adapted are still in existence. If you do not embrace new technology that becomes a trend like AI in your industry and you do not use it, somebody else is going to use it and they will be one step ahead of you and you will become outdated, and things that become outdated becomes discarded. That's, again, how humans are. The reason why we developed and are currently developing an AI legal assistant is because we know if we don't, somebody else will, and somebody else probably already did, and I don't want to be left behind. And the ability is there. It's a tool we can use, but it's my responsibility to make sure that tool is firstly proper, used correctly, and does not have, as far as reasonably possible, the ability to be misused by somebody else. But that's the thing. It's not Terminator. I'm not creating Terminator. Although you can come visit our office and you will see the being itself. It's a web-based AI, but we created an interface that looks like a robot for marketing purposes. But some people will freak out because all of a sudden I've got a Terminator in my office. It doesn't look like the Terminator, but the mental picture is being created by people. If I say I've got an AI and you can come talk to her in my office, she is standing there. They're like, oh, it's a Terminator. Like you say, we're not heading towards the Terminator. I might be wrong, and I'll be the first to admit it if I am. But I don't.
Well, we'll see each other in the afterlife.
Yes.
I also don't think, looking at people that think that AI is coming to take their job. Yes, AI is coming to take your job. But if you think of how tech has evolved, 20 years ago, there was no such thing as a social media manager.
Yes.
And there was no such thing as social media marketing. Those are new things from the last 20 years. And in 20 years' time, they'll probably be gone because, in my opinion, social media is dying. And at least in its current form. So the jobs that are kind of emerging out of this AI thing are the same that emerged out of the first kind of tech revolution. They haven't been invented yet. We're kind of making things up as we go along. Exactly. And if you're not willing to make things up as you go along, you are going to get left behind, like you say. So,
and that's the thing. It's throughout history, from the beginning of recorded history, that has been the scenario. New technology will take the jobs of all technology, and therefore people adapt to the new technology because simultaneously it creates new jobs. And I'm taking the car industry here as an example. Cars used to be welded by hand. then the electric welding, those robot arms came in. I'm skipping a few steps, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
But somebody needs to service the robot arm that welds. Somebody needs to code it. Somebody needs to manufacture it. Somebody needs to maintain it. So all of a sudden there's, the welder welding the vehicle panels don't have a job anymore, but he might be able to it's just this where one door closes, another one opens concept. And people should look at that. And artists, for instance, imagine the ability you would have as an artist if a lot of your conceptualization is done with an AI. You're going to save hours and you can paint way more. If a client comes to you and they're like, I've got this idea for a commission. I'm taking this as a scenario. I had a discussion with one of our clients. He was an artist. I said, use the AI. If a client comes to you for a commission, how long does it take for you to just get concepts across the board? He's like, weeks. I'm like, how many concepts can you generate through AI? No, it's like, probably thousands in a week. I'm like, so use AI to generate the actual concepts for the client to approve and then start painting. And we had a discussion last week where he actually thanked me for it, to say, well, he didn't realize that aspect. He's a traditional artist. He still uses paint on a canvas, but he uses AI to figure out what a client wants in a visual context without having to paint versions of it. And then he takes the concept and then he's like, okay, the client knows this, and he scratches over the concept until they're happy, and then he starts painting his mural. But it saves weeks in his development, therefore he can paint 3 more paintings in that week. And it's a tool that you can utilize towards what you're already doing in most instances. I'm not saying
the earning potential kind of increases as well along with that. I mean, you become faster at your outputs, you become more productive, and you can kind of focus your attention on the stuff that you really enjoy doing rather than like. I know, like if you're an artist, you probably enjoy conceptualizing, but
That's true.
I suppose it also boils down to what you enjoy doing. But if you can produce work of a good quality faster, I don't know, it's like that Venn diagram: fast, cheap, and
I know.
fast, cheap, and good.
And good. But now AI has the ability to, in certain scenarios, turn that diagram on its head. Because now I can do good and cheap, and because of AI, I can do it fast.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want that? All of a sudden,
exactly.
me or you or anybody has an advantage on their competitors. Because I make sure it's good, and I make sure because it's good, I can offer it not cheap. I hate the word cheap, but more cost effective.
At a cost effective rate.
Cost. Why? Because the AI gave me the ability to do it quick. So I don't need to overcharge you because I spent less time that I would have, but I still ensure that it's good. It's a tool that people should, within reason and within boundaries and the ethical concerns and legal concerns always taken into account, utilize within the potential and the intention it was created. But we're still in early days of AI, and there's still a lot of things that we will face and deal with, and questions and issues that we will need to hash out before we get to a finalization. But
as soon as precedents start getting set, then I think people will become more comfortable. It's just no one wants to go first. No one wants to be the first person sued. No one wants to be the first person to sue. So as soon as precedents are set, then
that's true. A lot of cases on that point, a lot of cases has gone to court. Most of them have settled out of court, so we don't really have precedents yet. I think there are a few recent ones from abroad. I'm talking under correction, but there is a lot of people that thankfully already went first. But it's going to take time. It's not an overnight thing, and a lot of things will need to change first and foremost people's perception, and then we can deal with the rest. So yeah, I'm not saying it's adopted like it's a cuddly bunny. I'm just saying don't put it in a corner and forget about it, because then we're going to look at scary stuff coming. But yeah, just at least try and understand it before you make up your mind. I think that's sort of the one thing. If anything goes to anybody, just try and understand it without just accepting what people say. Just make up your own mind, and to make up your own mind about AI, you need to actually interact with it on your own. You can't make up your own mind based on what other people says. It doesn't make sense.
I'd like to I'd like to kind of round off the conversation, because I think that that's probably quite a good place to leave it in terms of the conversation. So I'd like to round off the conversation with some quick fire questions.
I love that.
The first one's not really a question. It's more of a challenge.
Yes.
And well, it's probably an easy one for you, because I don't know much about IP law. So tell me something I don't know about IP law.
That's actually a challenging question, because which one do I choose? One thing that people don't know about IP law is that it is largely misunderstood. That's the one thing, and that it is not as expensive as you might think. I think that's two of the things that I can leave with them, because people tend to misunderstand it. They don't understand the differences between those four main elements of IP law, and they believe it is extremely expensive for some odd reason. It's not. Dealing in intellectual property and getting IP protection and advice is not expensive, depending on who you go to, naturally. But yeah, so that's, I think, the two things that most people, including I assume you, didn't know. It's not expensive, and you might not know anything about IP. You admitted you don't know a lot about IP, but a lot of people don't know anything about IP, although they think they do.
Okay, cool. Second question, which is actually a question. We're into the question round now. So is there any kind of specific thing or routine that you do that you believe contributes to the success of your business, besides developing an AI?
Well, the one thing, and I tell this to people often, is embrace yourself, if that makes sense. And the reason I say that is I get asked a question often, or told, you don't look like a lawyer. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't. What does a lawyer look like? Well, what do you mean? I look like a lawyer. I am a lawyer and I look like this, therefore I look like a lawyer. But it's that in any business, you do business and you work at your business majority of the time of a day. If you're not doing that true to you, if you're not comfortable and authentic about it, you're going to be miserable, because you're lying to yourself, and we're not programmed like that as humans. So be ethical, be professional in your industry. I'm not saying be a slacker and things like that, but don't try and be someone or something you're not. You can be, in my case, have long hair, tattoos, sit in a t-shirt, and still be brilliant at intellectual property law. And what happens is the people that most of our clients enjoy that, because they feel comfortable dealing with us, because we are the same. We're not the guys in the suits. Yes, the guys in the suits have specific clients they approach, and they need to be in suits. But taking that scenario into any business is, if you are true to yourself and honest with yourself, people feel more comfortable and they trust you. And at the end of the day, people do business with people. People know when somebody's not being authentic. So that's what my routine is, not trying to fake it.
Awesome. Great advice. Third question, what do you do when you're not working on your business? I know as a business person and as a lawyer, there's not much time left to play with. But in the 5 minutes between 4 and 4:05 in the morning.
That's actually very easy in my case. In the current years, I spend time with my son in the sense that he's obsessed with Lego and I'm obsessed with Lego, so we build Lego together. Or we go
Amazing.
outside and have fictional lightsaber fights. And my wife's sitting and laughing at us while she's reading our book. So yes, it's very cliche, but if I'm not working, I make sure I spend as much time as possible with my family because, like you said, as a business owner, you don't have that many. We don't work from 9 till 5. Getting time to spend with your family is not as easy as it would be with somebody that works normal for normal salary. Therefore, the moment you get, just overdo it. The moment you get to your family, overdo it. And I'm very good at overdoing things.
It's really difficult because, they always say, on your deathbed, you're not going to wish you'd spent more time at work. But like when you run your own business, you're going to have to graft. Someone once told me that when you open your own business, you trade the 9 to 5 for 24/7. And they weren't joking.
No.
So
No, they weren't. They weren't. Which brings me just briefly, that second question you had, what's your routine? If you're going to do this as a business owner 24/7, do it on your own terms. Don't do it according to other people's terms. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Fourth question.
Yes.
If all the books in the world spontaneously combust, except for one, what would it be and why? And I want to I don't know if you want to do a book, because you've got like 1,000 vinyls pasted on the wall behind you. You can do an album as well. So if all the albums in the world suddenly spontaneously combust, what would it be and why?
What's the one I would save?
What's the one you would save?
What the one I would save is people will laugh at me, but it's a specific Fok of Polisiekar album. And I can't recall the exact one, but there's a song on that where and I'm going to paraphrase for some reason, but basically, the reason I'm not going to sing the song is because it's Polisiekar and you can imagine the words in it. But the message that comes across in that thing is, I'm not going to fit into your version of society. I will be myself. Just, and the specific sentence I want to say, I'm really not going to say because they say it very, very true to the way they are. But it's just basically up yours to the way you think I must live my life. I will live it the way I want to. And the reason I choose that album where that song is on is if everybody lived that way, imagine how wonderful society would be. We would all be comfortable being ourselves, and we would all be comfortable with other people being themselves. It would be perfect, within reason. but
yeah,
and it's to me, music is the message behind music is so important, and I think the message. And a lot of people will disagree with me for choosing that, but that's the nice thing about opinion. It's mine, and if you don't like it, I accept your opinion. Please accept mine. But it's that. Can I just say the Fok of Polisiekar collection of all the albums and leave it at that?
Yes. Okay. That's perfect. Awesome. Final question. What one piece of advice do you wish you'd received when you started your business?
The one piece of that's a difficult one because I tend not to always listen to other people's advice because thanks for your advice, but I'll still do the way
it doesn't sound like I know. Well, that's the beauty of advice is that you can choose based on the advice not to follow it and go in a different direction. So
when I honestly, and I really honestly can say there's not really a piece of advice I wish I got when I started my business that I haven't for the reason that I haven't got, I actually went out and spoke to a lot of people and went to people I appreciated and I looked up to in the industry, in the business industry and the legal industry, and I made sure that the advice I got when starting the business I got. So it's difficult for me to say I wish I got that piece of advice when starting the business, but I can say in life I have one, is I wish that somebody told me earlier in life that don't listen to the people that try and put you down, because they are the people that are threatened by you. I got that advice way before I started a business and I adopted in my business. Those people that will criticize you in a negative way. Critique is amazing because you know what you're doing wrong and you know how to adapt it. And you can always, some critique is like, yeah, okay, thank you, but I'm happy with that critique. But some people will criticize you and your business for the sake of it, for one specific reason. They are threatened by you, which means their critique is a confirmation that you are succeeding. And I wish somebody told me that early in life. It would have made a lot of difference in life. Well, I'm saying that now. I think everything that happened to me and everybody in their lives brings them to where they should be. So I said it with a tinge of salt. I wish I got that advice earlier, but the reason I got that advice when I got it means I appreciated it more. But I think that's something that I would have liked having when I was really, really small and tiny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope
Okay.
that's a good answer, but that's the answer. That's the truth.
Amazing. Thanks, Christiaan. This has been super interesting. And I think that I've taken at least my first step in kind of getting on top of the copyright and Gen AI thing. But I think that like we said before we pressed record again, this is such a big topic that it's going to be revisited by thousands of different podcasts and experts before anyone actually kind of grasps the full thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Where can people get hold of you? I know you said you're very active on social. I'm connected with you on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Are you on other social platforms?
We are on every social platform. Well, I say everyone that most of the public knows. Easiest way is just go onto our website, SteynIP.com. All our links are there. At SteynIP on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Go check out our YouTube channel. That we've got a lot of content there to try and educate people. But we're mostly active on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, because it's just my generation. That's the sort of the social media we are comfortable with. We have people dealing with others. But our website is sort of the go-to. Our website has everything, all our links, all our contact details, our address, everything is there, and from there you can venture into the abyss of whatever you are interested in. So SteynIP.com, and if you I know we mentioned our firm's AI. It's called I Know, like in I know, but it's spelled AINNO. But you can go onto SteynIP.ai to start engaging with it. It's still being developed. It's still in the training phase. But go there and interact with it and see what you think of it. I think that's a good way for people that are scared of AI. Just go check that out. You don't have to be scared. So
it's like a chatbot. I was playing around with it a little bit before we jumped on the call, and it's kind of like a chatbot on steroids. It's nothing to be afraid of, and the responses that it gives are very kind of easy to understand, and layman's terms as well, which is great.
That's the thing, and her personality is odd, hey?
She's very like, yay, high energy.
I know, it's like, but that's the nice thing about the technology, and I think that's what people would appreciate. That they shouldn't be afraid of it, because at the end of the day, it's nothing new. It's just a new way of doing things already. And you saying it's a chatbot, and on steroids, it's actually a good way to explain it, because chatbots are common. People know chatbots. Look, it's not a chatbot because chatbots are pre-programmed answers and things like that. But people understand the concept of a chatbot. Now you're doing a chatbot with something that can actually grasp your question and give you an answer that you would understand, not just a pre-programmed answer. But people are okay with chatbots, so you should be okay with AI. Again, simplifying it and generalizing it a lot. But I think, sorry, again, venturing into ways.
In a complex world,
that's where you get us.
In a complex world, simple is the king. So, awesome. Thanks, Christiaan. This has been fantastic. And thanks again for taking the time. I've really enjoyed this.
No, it was amazing. I think we will be able to chat for a AI podcast on its own, definitely. But I mean, no, thank you for having me on. It was amazing, and I really enjoyed the discussion and the topics. So yeah, I hope to chat again soon. And
I'm sure we will.
Brilliant.